All right, I'm going to go with this. When things come up and the Lord is speaking to you, too often I make a note and I try to pick it back up later. The problem is I have journals and note after note and sticky Post-its all over the place. And I've started to keep a recorder maybe about 2 years ago by my bedside so I can record my dreams. And I now use my phone, which is great because, hey, if I get something and Daddy wants to give me a heartfelt message or something to come back to, I better be able to get that down. Today would be no different. When I started coming into the schools here in the South, Daddy basically said to me, it will be nameless and faceless. If people want to think I'm expendable, so be it. It makes no difference to me. A lot of times in the beginning, I had people waiting for me at my car. One time I had a group of students, surround me. I had sweat rings like down to here because I thought I was going to die. And being thrown into the culture, it felt like a suddenly, but then the Lord revealed to me how much I had prayed for an opportunity like this. And it didn't look the way I wanted it to, which is so God. So years ago when Heidi Baker had come for a conference, I went forward, of course, because she had this immense love for different people groups. And of course, she's in Africa and they're raising the dead and, 4-year-olds are being healed of AIDS and living good lives. And I love her stories about the love that she had that embraced anybody and brought new life. And I knew I needed that. It was prior to my deliverance. We're talking about 4 or 5 years ago. But I wanted that impartation of love. And lo and behold, I'm waiting in line and I get up to the front and she gets whisked off the stage. But thankfully, one of her adopted sons, who's been with her for a long time, I asked him, I'm like, I need you to pray for me to have love for a different people group because I want to be able to open my heart to people that I don't know or understand because I want to see with the spiritual eyes that Jesus had, and I don't feel like I have that. And so at that time, it was more or less just a seeking, and of course, when you seek, you find. So he prayed for me, and it was almost better than I could have imagined because he said, this is going to come, but he touched my heart and he asked for more compassion. And that was very important. I don't feel I had compassion at that time. And that was accurate, and time passes. I then went to a house church at one point. It was around the same time, and I'm starting to hear a lot of confirmation now in my life about the prophetic words that I received, 18, 19 years ago. And that is important because so often I hear people poo-poo them because they're like, oh, well, it hasn't come to pass yet. Okay, these things take time to cultivate people. So, okay, we're just going to put that where it needs to be, in the heavenly realm. So in the atmosphere I received. And then I go to this house church and I said, I know this teaching, preaching, pastoring, prophetic, healing, is in me. And I really hope that one day I can write curriculum and manuals like Beth Moore and have the healing anointing of Heidi Baker because I know that I'm destined for that love, that depth of love because I need it. I need it so much more than the average Christian. I said that one time, and the pastor was like, and he talked about it on church on Sunday, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is that a good thing? I don't know. But it is because of what I've come from. On the daily, I am talking to Jesus 24/7. And it's now becoming fun. It's now like, I need this so much to get outside of myself, to die to myself, that I don't respond in the reactive way that I used to. Very recently, like within the past 3 years, has this become something that I can walk in. All right, my point being, at this house church, someone who was very high up in ministry, and I've got lots of these stories, and I'm not going to tell them from a place of putting them down because I've overcome, and they didn't hinder me. They, in fact, enlightened me of what not to do. But, this pretty big wig in the church was like, that's a tall order for a girl like you. And I was like, wow, that just put a damper in the atmosphere, and everybody was just like, And I'm thinking, you know what? And actually in that moment, I'm pretty sure I got my stuff and rolled from that house church because I just didn't get it. And I'm like, if we are all supposed to be on the same page, why is it such a competition? Why is everybody looking to have fame and fortune in ministry? Why does everybody have to have the right prophetic word? And I know from my experience that I have these healing gifts and prophetic gifts, and I can hear words and, lay hands on the sick. I've seen paraplegics walk and countless miracles, and, it's not about that, because I was going after the character. I was seeking the character, and yet these people in places of authority were lacking that character. So, put that feather in my cap, and I'm like, I just need something more. I need something authentic. Seeking out the authentic led me to great disillusionment. And when I'm here among a Black populated county, and I'm little old white chick that walks in, I get to draw on those times where my own people, the whiteys, didn't really cheer me on in my giftings. And in fact, I had to be the only white chick that was going to an all-Black church for 2 years. And I received countless impartation, and I didn't really understand why I was being led there. And I've been led to India and El Salvador and different people groups, and I know that's in me for the sake of being a missionary to America, because I'm seeing where we are just breaking down from the foundational roots of Christianity, and we don't know if we're coming or going. We're cray-cray these days because we're believing in a political system. We're putting our hope in some kind of government mandate, and this whole thing with God is Republican and Democratic. Please, I worked in DC for 3 years, and let me tell you, the lobbyists run the show. People, it doesn't really even matter the passionate side that you believe God would be on, and how he would back you up and say you're right and my man over here was wrong. Bogus. He doesn't operate in the ways that we do, and we have got to call our ways higher, because we have to line up with his will and what's going on in heaven. So the heavenly perspective is now where I find myself when I'm in the schools. So I am loving the Black folk. And when I see the questions that they have for life, what are they gonna do when they graduate, when it's predicted and stereotyped that 93% of them are going to go to prison instead of college? In a populated school of like 800, you've got 8 that are going to go to college. I'm in a classroom where seniors are graduating, and I say, are you going to go to college? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, where? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, so you missed that time frame of sending in a college essay. Do you want some help with that? And how I've now seen where the compassion and the love has manifested in my life is I actually give a rip about these kids. So I can come in, fly by night, nobody really wants to hear what Miss Andrews has to say in the teacher realm, but the kids, I have their utmost respect. Doesn't even matter, actually, if some of them disrespect me, dishonor me. I always put it out there, I will never respond to you with the same dishonor that you give to me, because that's not who I am. And I'm meant to call you into, to edify and to lift you up and to bring you in to the identity of God. Now, I know it's a public school, and I know we can't talk about those things, but when I straight up am in a classroom and I have to allow you to watch film, documentary, historical information that's trying to breed hate that matches up with the level of hatred that I feel in the atmosphere today on this earth because of the political regimes that are rising up in power, I have to say something. And so today was one of those days. And in Savannah, the history, Daddy showed me in a dream. I was underneath the city of Savannah and looking through file cabinets and spiders and scorpions, and that was a whole big to-do. And that was one of the first weeks I was here on Southern soil. And that has stuck with me, and that has played out as I minister to my people group, to the students that I share with. And today was no different because they're getting hostile, they're getting angry, as they should, because what's being shown is nothing less than the great injustice that ancestors of African American culture have suffered, especially here because it's the South. But I had to point out the fact that we aren't slaves anymore. I'm not a slave to my mindsets. They're not a slave to